Hello, my name is Kerrioth, and today we're going to talk about Games Workshop, Warhammer 40,000, Primaris Marines, and whether old G-dubs is in fact ruining the best sci-fi setting ever, essentially. Well, it is, it's 40k, fight me. So, there's been a lot of stuff since the Primaris Marines arrived, since they were announced and shown off, and we've had a couple of hints of other things, including the funky Redemptor Dreadnought, I believe it's called, and the Repulsor tank. Now, both of these things have been kind of met, I think, with some people loving it, some people hating it, and a good number of people thinking that it's just stupid and why Space Marines getting even more stuff. I will say, before we go any further, that I don't think Space Marines are getting any more stuff. I think Primaris Marines are going to get a shitload of stuff, and I think if you are running a standard Space Marines army, I don't think you should expect too much in the way of releases in the near future. I'm pretty sure that your stuff is going to get phased out probably within the next year. I thought it might take longer, but there's some stuff floating around that suggests that perhaps Games Workshop are really going all in on the Primaris Marines as just full-on replacing normal Space Marines, which, on the one hand, I love the look of the Primaris Marines. I like the idea behind them. I still don't know how the hell they could ever actually introduce them without upsetting a serious number of people, but I admire the fact they tried, and I will be getting them because they just look great to me. That being said, I will not be exempt from the loss of a Space Marines army should those rules ever go away because, well, yep, my main army, in fact my only completed army, is Space Marines. So that's fun. But, you know, these things happen. So, Primaris Marines. Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Repulsor tanks. New tech. New stuff. Not the old boxy, well, I say not the old boxy vehicles, it's still a boxy vehicle, the Repulsor. It's got floaty bits instead of tracky bits. It's not really that different to the standard Space Marine fare, except it's a hover tank instead of a tank with treads like any other tank. But it kind of represents a major shift, because previously, when we've had new Space Marine stuff, it's been a case of, oh look, we found this STC on this planet, and now we can construct a slightly different vehicle that uses the same hull as a Rhino and a Predator. It's like the Stalker and whatever the other one is. It's very much a case of, oh, we can build this new thing that is remarkably similar to the old thing in pretty much every single way, except it's got a different gun on top. And while that keeps the range consistent, it's also not actually that exciting. And I think that's an issue that I've had with Space Marines for quite a while, because I've played Space Marine based armies for so long. I mean, hell, my first ever army was Iron Warriors, and I've even got this little guy still. There's a nice souvenir of those early days of Warhammer 40k. Proper old Metal Chaos Dreadnought, that. Awesome. Weighs a ton, it's probably poisonous, but I keep it around anyway. Space Marines, they suffer from, I think, overexposure from Games Workshop in a way. They're the best selling faction, undeniably, and as such they get the most attention, undeniably. But all their shit looks the same, and it has looked the same for a long, long time. Like the marks of tactical armour that you got in tactical squads and assault squads and all of that, it's all the same stuff. And yeah, when you pick up a Stern Guard veteran kit or a Vanguard veteran kit, you can cover it in skulls and chains and blingy bits and bits of cloth and robes and stuff. But at the end of the day, it still looks like a Space Marine. The same Space Marines that we've had for years and years and years. They're not that exciting. The main attraction for Space Marines for me is the customization. You can do what you like with them. I mean, I've got 21 Terminators languishing back there, and they are made from a mix of the Space Marine kits, the Dark Angel, the Deathwing, and Space Wolf Terminator kits. It's just a massive, massive kit bash of all of that stuff together, with a little bit of chaos thrown in here and there, just for a hint of heresy in my loyalist army. And that's the reason I like Space Marines so much, because you can adapt them, you can change them, you can turn them into pretty much whatever you like. A standard normal Space Marine army looks very much similar to a standard normal Space Marine army, and because they're so ubiquitous, because they're just everywhere, I feel like the range has gotten stale. So for me, the Primaris Marines are perfect. They're combining my favourite things. They're combining true scale Space Marines, so on the tabletop it won't look like your superhuman warriors are just short guys who need to take a shit. They're also introducing new technology. It's not really new, but it still looks new because instead of having yet another Rhino variant, we've got a floating tank. Now, that doesn't sound like quite that much of a big thing, especially if you are, for instance, a Tau or Eldar or Dark Eldar player. It's like, oh, floating tanks. And we've had boxes on treads and nothing else for so long. I mean, even the Dreadnought, the new Dreadnought, I really like the look of because it's recognisably Space Marine. And yet, it's not just a Dreadnought with some extra bits stuck on. It looks different, it looks new, it looks more modern. And that seems to be the way that they're going with the Primaris line. They seem to be actually attempting to modernise their army. And that's brilliant to me. I cannot dislike that because in the same way that I found the Space Marine line to be fairly stale, to be fairly repetitive, I kind of am at the point now where, if I'm honest, the Imperium setting, the whole, the stagnant empire hemmed in on all sides by foes, that's kind of got a bit stale as well. Because here's the thing, the individual acts of like heroics and oh, this chapter of Space Marines saved this region of space, glory to the Emperor, great. The little stories that Games Workshop put out, that people write themselves, that crop up all over the place, I like that. I like those individual tales because something a little bit different happens each time. Unless it's Games Workshop writing it, in which case someone will turn up at the last minute, save the planet, and the Imperium won't lose it, because otherwise you'd have to say goodbye to the Blood Angels, for instance. But the overall setting, I think it's been going for so long, and it's been that setting for so long, that to me, it's kind of become like the Space Marine range. It's kind of become a bit mundane, a little bit unimaginative, because time and time again there have been these big events that are supposed to shake up the Imperium, and nothing happens. Just nothing happens. No one comes back, and no one of any importance dies, and then we're back to square one. Somehow, despite the fact that the Imperium is under siege every second of every day across thousands of planets, it just keeps going and nothing ever occurs. And I get it, that is the whole point of the setting. It's in the grim darkness of the far future, there's only war, and that's great. But you get to a certain point where if all it is war, and there's no victories for either side that mean anything, and there's no progress in terms of technology or battles themselves, it just kind of gets a bit dull, and I think that's what's happened, to be perfectly honest. Now, I know there's plenty of people out there who'll go, no, you've missed the point. No, I do, I get it. I liked the setting a lot more than I do now, because it was still not fresh, but it at least had that kind of air of hopelessness, even though you see so many stories where there is hope. It's not called hope because that's heresy, but you get what I mean. It's the last stand that actually turns out to be the stand that wins the fight. There's a group of people holding out against a just ridiculous horde of greenskins, but then, say, the salamanders turn up and they've won the battle, although the planet is in severe trouble now because half the population's dead and it's on fire. That kind of thing. And it's great when that is kind of shown to be the norm, except as soon as you make it normal, you make it less interesting. As soon as you make it just, oh, it's another thing that happened, it loses that, it loses that punch, that hit that I feel you should be getting from a setting that is made entirely out of war. For me, the Primaris Marines are actually showing a really nice shift in direction for not just Space Marines, but also for the story as a whole. So, for a start, Rowboat Girly Man, he is back. He's demanding to know what's going on. He's not happy, and I don't blame him, because the Imperium is just a stagnant shithole where nothing gets done, and he wants stuff to get done. There's the ridiculous rift, just a massive warp storm cutting the Imperium in half. Excellent, because that gives potential for either a civil war or for like almost two different Imperiums at the same time. The Imperium that is locked just behind this horrendous warp storm, this massive tear in the galaxy that is just beset by chaos, that is your horrendous grim darkness. That is your locked in eternal struggle. All we can do is wait for reinforcements, and even the reinforcements are only going to keep the status quo. Nothing's going to change. But in the Imperium, where you've got Earth and you've got Mars and you've got the Primaris Marines really able to get into their stride, you can actually make things happen without upsetting the overall balance. And I'm really looking forward to that, because for me, you can have eternal war without having every single fight be a loss for the good guys. I mean, there are no good guys, really. The Imperium isn't the good guys, neither is Chaos. I mean, if anything, Chaos has got more of a point, because they hate how stagnant and shitty the Imperium's become, but there you go. But you don't need to reduce every battle to, and it made no difference. Because that's where you get that mundane, repetitive feeling from, which is what I've got from the setting over the last maybe year and a half. Actually having planets being lost, chapters being wiped out, but making gains elsewhere, it being a constant ebb and flow, like a push and pull. Yeah, they might have lost a chunk of the Imperium there, and that's bad, but they've made tremendous gains over there because they've wiped out God knows what. That to me is more satisfying than they took this planet, but then we killed them and took it back, which, let's face it, is how a lot of this stuff feels like it plays out. It feels like a more, I don't know, it just feels like it's evolving a bit more, which is absolutely and properly very well reflected in the Primaris range. You've got a grav tank now. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but surely in the 10,000 years that Guilliman was asleep, some fucker must have looked at a tank and gone, I wonder if we can attach a bunch of the stuff that we put on land speeders to that. I mean, it's not hard, but no one did it. Same thing with the Redemptor Dreadnought. It's like, well, got venerable ones, we've got ironclad, and we've got normal dreadnoughts, and the only difference essentially is that one of them has got fancy carving on it, the other one has got a bit more metal on the front of it, and the other one's just normal, and that's it. Surely someone could have gone, what if we stick longer legs on this and give it more guns? I mean, it's not beyond the realm of possibility, except it kind of felt like Games Workshop had become like the Imperium of their setting, stagnant and unimaginative. Instead of it being, look at this crazy breakthrough thing that has been found, like this actual game changer in terms of what you've had before and what we're giving you now. Look at this grav tank. We didn't get that. We got another Rhino variant. Do you want another Rhino variant? It's like, no, we've got like fucking 8 of those. Can we not have something a bit more interesting? No, sorry, don't have the STC for that. Just because the setting's unimaginative and repetitive doesn't mean that the model releases need to be unimaginative and repetitive. And the Primaris Marine, I think, really reflects that. The armour's updated, it's more modern looking. The weapons are updated, they're more modern looking. The vehicles are different. They're recognisably Space Marine, but they're not just the same old shitty Space Marine stuff that we've seen before. In a way, I think this is actually really good for the setting. Yeah, it is changing it. It's not just the same fights over and over and over again. But you can make things that much more impactful and important by making them matter. And at the moment, it doesn't feel like anything really matters in the like the Warhammer 40k universe until Guilliman came back and Magnus came back. It just kind of felt like this is the status quo. This is all that's ever going to happen. And so nothing will ever happen. You don't want your setting to feel as though it's going nowhere. And while that is the point of the setting as a whole, you can still achieve an Eternal War setting without having nothing happen. And it feels like things are happening. Primaris Marines are turning up. They've got new technology. They've got new tanks. Guilliman is kicking Mars up the arse and saying, do you want to actually fucking make something new for once? And that's really good, because that looks like it's translating across into the overall story. So you can still have your never-ending fight, but instead of it being meaningless, you can have victories here, victories there, losses there. You can actually make it an evolving, living universe made up entirely of grim, dark death, without it being nothing but grim, dark death. And I know people don't like change, and I know there's going to be people who just want the old setting as it was. That's all it is. Just one eternal fight. No one wins, no one loses. It's just that. But it opens up so much more in the way of good storytelling to actually have new things happen. And it's promising. To me, it's promising because it feels like we are having new stuff happen. We've got new Thousand Sun stuff. We've got Primaris Marines coming out. We've got the return of at least 2 Primarchs so far. We know that Mortarion is on the way. We also know, well, I say we know, it's likely that the Lion is going to be making a comeback based on the one of their little teaser images they put up, the Warhammer community site. Big lion shoulder pad, kind of gives it away. I'd hope, anyway. I'm all in favour of it. I don't think they're ruining the setting. I think they're improving it. I think they're making it more interesting and more lively. You know, they're making it evolve a little bit. And that's good, because it means the stories that come out of it will be better, the stakes will be higher, and we might actually get to see the Imperium win something. It would be nice to see them win something, to be honest. Everyone else gets these little victories. The Imperium doesn't seem to get that much in the way of victories. And even if it's followed by a loss, at least they did something. At this point, for the setting, I just want something to happen. It's a shame it's taken this long, but now that it is, I can't say I'm unhappy about it. I'm actually really looking forward to it. Anyway, what do you think of the changes to the setting? What do you think of the Primaris Marines? Are they too modern? Do you like the fact they're changing it up? Or would you prefer it all stayed the same? Do you think the setting was fine how it was? Or, like me, are you kind of excited to see what they do with it? I'd be very interested to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments below. I always read them. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. If you want to like the video, that would be nice if you liked it. There's various other videos, and there's a link to subscribe, and there's a link to Patreon and all that stuff. Thank you very much for watching again. I'll see you next time. Toodaloo.